the response to October 7th by Israel. Can you steel man the case that Israel went too far?
Well, the case that started from very early on that critics of Israel had was the claim that, I mean, I think I first heard it on about the 8th of October, before Israel had done anything in response, was the claim that Israel must act proportionately in response. And I have a critique of this that I've often expressed, which is that there is such a thing as proportionality in warfare. And at the same time, Israel is always accused of acting disproportionately. And the proportionality that much of the rest of the world seems to think Israel should express in warfare is to have an equal level of suffering or killing on both sides. I don't think there's any law of war that says that, if you kill 1,200 people and you kidnap another 250, that, as it were, the other side's allowed to do the same back. But that's what a lot of people think. And then when they see the death toll escalating on the Gazan side, they say Israel has acted disproportionately and has overreacted. That one is tricky because it's my belief that, I mean, again, this is a basic thing, but it has to be stated that 9 million citizens of Israel, if you extrapolate that out to what the 7th of October would have meant in American terms, you'd be talking about a day on which, if the attack had happened in America, where 44,000 Americans were killed in one day and 10,000 American citizens taken hostage. Nobody can tell me that if such an atrocity occurred, that America would not do whatever it needed to destroy the groups that had done that and to retrieve the hostages who'd been taken.
So just on that point, I agree with you 100%. America would hit hard back. And I think a lot of Americans would feel justified in that. But it's also possible that the military-industrial complex and the politicians would do something like the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, which means extend far beyond hitting back and actually do a thing that's destructive to everybody, including America financially, and the flourishing of America and the flourishing of humanity broadly, and the region, and the stability, and the war on terrorism, if that's a real thing. The war in Iraq and Afghanistan did not maybe succeed in defeating terrorism or even making progress. It probably made more terrorists than not. So there's a justified feeling of hitting back and going after somebody like bin Laden in the case of 9/11. And then there's just the actual implementation. And it seems like the implementation can sometimes, intended or unintended, have consequences that are bordering on war crimes, if not downright war crimes. Now, this is a general statement. And now we'll look at Israel, where things are small land. Everything is very compact. There's a lot of complexities that are well studied that we've talked about extensively.
Well, the two stated aims of the Israelis after the 7th were to get the hostages back and to destroy Hamas. And many people said that you could do one but not both. And I actually think they've gone a long way to doing both. By no means everything. There are still hostages, as we're speaking, held in Gaza, including a young American. And Hamas is not completely destroyed. It's very, very significantly degraded, but it's not completely destroyed. But those are the two aims. I believe that, I mean, I've seen as much of the war as any outside observer. I don't know, there are some exceptions maybe, and so I think I can say with considerable certainty what the Israelis have and haven't done. There were various operations at the beginning, various plans which didn't happen, like storming straight in and getting, for instance, as many hostages as possible out of the Shifa complex, which is called a hospital, but it's also at the very least the Hamas command headquarters. And there was a plan to maybe go and do that fast, but it was avoided because of the number of deaths on all sides that would be likely to happen. The Israelis did actually hold back at the beginning. There was a period of making sure that when they went into Gaza, they didn't do so in any way blind. But Gaza is a very built-up area, and population-wise is densely populated. Something, by the way, which the people who claim frivolously that Israel has been committing genocide never take account of, which is the fact that the Gazan population has boomed since the Israeli withdrawal in 2005. It's almost doubled. But yeah, it's a densely populated area, and it's an incredibly difficult place for the train of war because of one thing in particular, which is that Hamas goes back a bit to our conversation earlier, but this is a much more extreme example. I mean, Hamas really don't play by the rules. In fact, they use the rules of war, the laws of war, completely to their own advantage. You know, it has to be reiterated. You are not meant to disguise your army as civilians. You're not meant to use places of care like hospitals as bases for your military operations. You're not meant to use schools and places of worship as operating centers of war. And Hamas does all of these things and has always done so. And it does so with the very obvious reason that for them, the whole thing is a 2-for-1 offer. You get to operate everywhere. And if the Israelis operate anywhere, you claim that this is a war crime, because how could they attack this group of civilians, these people who are dressed as civilians, these people merely fighting from a mosque, and so on. And that's why everybody who's been to Gaza, who's seen the fighting, knows the same thing, which is this is just incredibly difficult warfare of a kind that American troops have seen in the last 20 years in Fallujah and elsewhere. Kurdish militia, the Peshmerga, saw when they were fighting as our frontline troops in the war against ISIS. Similar house to house, but by no means with the same entrenched bases. Again, it can't be stressed enough that Hamas has used the years since the Israeli withdrawal from 2005 to build this vast underground tunnel network. And again, it's obvious, but it has to be remembered. And I quote one of the Hamas leaders in the book saying this in an interview: when they build their tunnels, they do so in order that their tunnels are used by them, Hamas, to store their weaponry, to secure their fighters, and to hold hostages. They do not build their underground tunnel networks for the safety of Gazan civilians avoiding aerial bombardment. And, every difference in the world seems to me to exist between a country which does build bomb shelters for its citizens and a government which builds bomb shelters for its bombs.